Well, I'm really happy to have a second conversation with you, Michael. We got a lot
Yeah,
of good feedback from the first one, and quite a few people wrote me and said, "Oh, I hope you have a second one." And so,
great.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
enjoyed it.
me too. Me too. So, something that you mentioned to me, I think maybe privately, or maybe it was in the first conversation, I can't remember, is how long? I mean, you're a retired clinical psychologist, and you've had an awakening now, what, 20 years, 15 years? I don't know.
Well, I started having them in college, but then I had Kensho with my Zen teacher in 1984. So,
Okay.
and a variety of other awakenings since then. But then in 2002, I had what felt to me like an abiding, really transformative shift
Yeah.
that stuck, whatever that means. So I would say 2002, um, but there were a lot of things that happened before then that affected me in deeper ways than I probably realized at the time.
Well, one of the reason I asked you about like for how long it's been, it's because my sense is that our topic today, which is embracing and welcoming our humanity, has been something that you've been interweaving and aware of for a good long time within yourself, within the work that you do, and within the satsangs you used to lead. And
Hmm.
um, and it's the same for me, in my way. And you know, I think that right now it's starting to really catch fire in a nice way
Mm.
that it's taken a while for this idea of embodiment and completing the circle of awakening, and that you first wake up out of your illusions, and then you the awakening goes up and out. That's natural. That's why it's called waking up. And then it wakes up and comes back down into to help liberate the illusions,
Mhm.
liberate the contractions. And 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 along the way, I think we get to see that really what this all really is about is embracing our humanity.
Mm.
And so I wanted to speak with you about this. As I said, it's been a topic that it's been something you've been aware of for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that the awakening culture it's becoming integrated in it more. I mean, still a little bit on the fringe, a bit in terms of understanding about it, but I think it's becoming more, I don't know, just people are starting to understand that this really is a
Yeah.
part of it. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, I'm possibly, I don't know, less optimistic about about it changing currently because but maybe that's true. And you may be more connected to the, sort of worldwide situation or US situation, but I I've always been deeply interested in how this is helpful to people and in their relationships. And if it doesn't improve your life and improve your interactions with others, you could say, what good is it? And I've had seems to me I've read Zen masters saying things like that. But yeah, I've always been interested in the unresolved issues. The vasanas is one good term for it, or samskaras. And how do you work with those either before, during, or after, no matter any level of awakening? And I can say for me, many seem to vaporize in the process of having these awakening realizations, but some didn't. And some are still here right now and sort of come and go. And maybe I would say the difference that happened to me after 2002 is I could watch it happen in real time. Like the moment I started believing something was real or that I was deserving something that I wasn't getting, I just noticed that because it felt icky. My own experience got less pleasant as I became less present. So, yeah, it's been very important. And because I was a psychologist who did, you know, 75,000 hours of psychotherapy, that was my test tube. That was my immersion, you know.
Yeah. Well, like I agree with you in the term and in that before, during, and post after the awakening, this um examination, self-examination
Hmm.
is valuable, and and my experience is this, the more that you can do prior, the
Yes.
easier it is.
Right. That's why, at least at the Zen Center I trained at, a quick awakening wasn't necessarily valued. I mean, it was might be real, and some people did have Kensho in the first 7 day session they went to. That was not typical, but it happened.
Mm.
For me, it
What do
was
you
the
mean by
third.
Kensho?
Kensho's awakening in the Zen tradition, and that's where you go before a Zen master and you basically demonstrate your understanding. It's not a verbal report, it's showing it behaviorally.
And so
Kensho
it's a
means
first, it's like self-realization of mind,
yeah, yeah. Self-realization of the body mind because it can't just be discussed or reported, it has to be shown behaviorally.
behaviorally. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh.
yeah. And they see it. I mean, if it's there, you walk into the Doksun room and the teacher will instantly see it.
Mm.
And that's true even if you don't know it, because occasionally people don't. So
Oh,
anyway, that was my lineage, and
yeah.
yeah,
Huh. Well, I don't know if it's not to disseminate necessarily different lineages, but we can just go with this one lineage of the Zen. Did you feel like there was an inclusionary journey then of the human experience that was spoken about, not just sort of loosely allegorically implied?
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, yes, absolutely.
Mm,
Um, yeah, that's one problem I've had with pure non-duality.
mhm,
It doesn't mean I haven't benefited from teachers who are coming from that perspective because I have, especially that's something I did the last 5 years more than ever.
mhm.
And I got a lot from that, but it's like it has to be lived out in the real world.
Yeah. Well, and in what way in Zen do they support the meeting the human bits that don't know it, that are still confused inside once realization's taken place? Because it doesn't all go poof, right?
Right. Well, they stress endless practice and koan work and they believe in that koan work is really what's needed before and after.
Mm,
I don't know if that's enough. Personally, I always felt some kind of psychological work or body work was really important.
yeah.
Um, and
Because it can't just be mental,
right,
Michael.
can't just be mental. Mm-mm.
No. And I'm not trying to take apart Zen here. It's kind of like don't you feel like it's one really has to use one's intuition about like where to swim and how to swim within once realization's taken place, and if we're lucky and it's not just wanting to hang out in the transcendent,
Yeah.
right? Because it's, comfortable and pleasant and blissful, but when it starts, the gravity of what is remaining is pulling down that rocket,
Yeah.
coming back into the orbit and say, take care of this business. That it's nice to personally, I enjoyed not being part of a tradition because I was free to be able to follow the impulse of what was needed versus some kind of established practice.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I did the Zen thing because that's where I was drawn, but then around 1988 I stopped altogether
Mm,
and just went my own way. And then in 2002, when I had this shift that seemed really big to me, I went back for 4 years but ever since then, I've been just doing my own thing. And there's been so many things that have been helpful to me in terms of uh, becoming aware of and releasing these deeply ingrained patterns. Um, I think many of them are familial patterns, cultural patterns, all belief systems, really, which they don't just disappear with any level of awakening. They're
Yeah. So it's kind of like some does get graced, right? And some stuff
Mhm.
does get taken
Oh yeah,
care of, but these deeper things, um, some people, as you know, get very confused at that stage when there's been an awakening, a realization of true nature. And then when these kind of contractions and challenges start pulling consciousness back down into that conditioning where
yeah.
separation and confusion lives, they get confused and are afraid to let go into including and embracing this part, afraid of losing their realization, basically.
Mm.
What would you just say to someone at that stage, at that point?
Well, you're not losing anything, but because it can't be lost. But at the same time, you're not meant to hang out in what I call the cave of non-duality forever. You have to come out and embrace the world. And that's, if you think of the 10 ox herding pictures, the 10th one is this man walking through the village, wearing normal clothes and grinning ear to ear. And he's embracing all that is. He's one with it, but he's truly present for it. And nothing needs to be excluded. Nothing gets left out.
So he rejoined humanity.
Hmm. He's right there, one of us. And there's a phrase of like simply human, and I think that is a good way of saying it. Just you become. I think some people start the path, and maybe me included, wanting to be somehow more than human or to get rid of the messiness and pain of being a human. But what eventually becomes clear is it's all you welcome everything just as it is.
And I have a quote here from Adyashanti. Where is it? Oh, here it is. The biggest act of love you will ever do is embrace the totality of your humanity.
Hmm.
The biggest act of love
Yeah, that's
you'll
beautiful.
ever do. Um, and
Yeah, that's the way I've said it is nothing needs to be left out or excluded. It's all welcome. It's all part of you. Nothing needs to be edited.
no, and don't you
It's
think when you do that, you're by embracing it, things refine and clarify what.
yeah. Well, it just goes further at reducing the sense of separation.
Mm,
The reason you might think you want to get rid of something is you're not comfortable with no separation. But that's the place to be, just one with all that is. Um, I remember Byron Katie had a book called Loving What Is. I like that title. But
yeah.
yeah, there's actually a psychiatrist named Harry Stack Sullivan who, of all places, worked in a state hospital in Binghamton, New York, where I was for many years, and eventually became famous for a kind of humanistic school of psychotherapy. And he said something once like, "We're all much more simply human than otherwise." So, and he was mainly working with people who would be schizophrenic or bipolar, people very disturbed in a state hospital, and doing psychotherapy with them. And we're all much more simply human than otherwise.
And with a deep realization, to me, the full circle realization is it includes this, as we're talking, as we're saying, it includes the humanity. And I wanted to maybe explore with you a bit, what do you find? And then I'll share maybe what I find too, because, unless asked, sometimes we don't even think about it. What do you find has remained in terms of your humanity that has, and I'm not talking about that which still wants to be seen through and met and embraced and loved by wholeness, and that what still is needing to be worked on. But I'm talking about what sincerely has remained as a human quality in you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, I've been very interested in personality styles and temperament, including the Myers-Briggs as a way of looking at things. And I think your temperament stays the same. I don't think any changes in that. Um, and different teachers have different temperaments, and that maybe helps create either a resonance or a lack of resonance. You're just gonna maybe naturally be drawn to certain people, both before and after. And I don't know that that changes or goes away or needs to. I think it's just the way it is. But I think there is maybe more awareness of it and willingness to just let it be the way, let everybody be the way they are, including yourself.
What part of your temperament kind of remained that feels authentic and true to your just your nature? What part of your temperament?
I like kindness, and I like to be kind to people as best I can. The Dalai Lama said something like, "My religion is loving kindness." And I've always felt that way as a person, but I may not have been as comfortable embracing it as I am now. There may have been a time in my life when I might not have seen that as an ultimate truth, but
Mm.
yeah, I like to try to be kind to people. I like when people are kind to me. I just am drawn to that and I appreciate it and I'm grateful for it. And I don't see any downside to it. And it doesn't mean you don't have boundaries or say no at times. And I mean, that's also important. But my preference for kindness is still there. Yeah.
One of the things I noticed about my temperament having maybe become more filled out,
Hmm.
is less shy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, quite a few qualities have remained
Hmm.
and even resurfaced that went to the background and that were beautiful qualities, when I was a child that kind of went underground. Um, but I think that with realization over time, fear of being myself fell away.
Hmm.
And so what remained as this kind of like what was afraid of speaking honestly, say, or being truthful, and afraid of that, if I was in a loving way, even truthful, that it might rock the boat too much and holding back and these different kinds of um, kind of how I was tempered out
Hmm.
of belief of how I'm supposed to be in the world
Hmm.
and to be liked or just to not rock the boat
Yep.
kind of fell away and so I sort of bloomed more it fully into who I am and what I am naturally
Hmm.
without the separate self sense kind of getting in the way.
Yeah, I would say without apology or concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the temperament pieces that I think are are here now are is more embracing just my direct nature,
Hmm.
but I also have a natural kindness and lovingness that is there part of it, but also not afraid of being direct.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I had I would say a profound fear of public speaking,
Mm.
that survived all of these different awakenings and Kensho and everything else. But it didn't survive this 2002 thing. It just sort of disappeared. And I think it was I remember somebody talking about a scrutiny phobia. That's what public speaking is. You're afraid if you've got an anxiety about it, you're afraid of being scrutinized and critically evaluated by the audience. And nothing I ever did seemed to help much with that. But then it just disappeared. I didn't really care what, and that doesn't mean I wasn't trying to communicate well, but it just, I wasn't overly concerned with how people took in what I had to say because I had no choice. I had to just tell my truth the way it is. So people like that or don't like that based on their own conditioning and programming and beliefs. And but I got far less concerned with trying to control the outcome of how people reacted to what I said or did. Um, that was such a blessing, and it's one of many sort of like ancillary benefits of really just letting go and not trying to micromanage or control yourself or other people, and just trusting.
I get that. I remember when I was first starting to lead some sad songs and people were, I was sitting there, and then people are here looking at me.
Yeah.
I'm here to deliver something.
Hmm.
And there was some nervousness here. And because I was in this unity phase of awakening where oneness was really being opened up to, and that's a heart level experience, is and I was so accustomed at this point to embrace what was here. And what was here was some anxiety, some like vibrational, and immediately there was this embrace of it, and it just included it so that I
Yeah.
started speaking, and there was this loving holding for that part that was just a bit anxious,
Hmm.
and it didn't get in the way anymore because it was embraced.
That's great. That's I think a template for how to deal with almost anything.
Yeah,
Any internal issue is just welcome it, appreciate it, allow it, have compassion, you know,
yeah,
let it be. Let yourself be.
exactly. So, we started off by speaking about how the awakening it is a waking up, and then it comes back for all these parts that don't know it yet, that
Mm-hmm.
are still maybe imagining separation is real,
Mm-hmm.
and that quite a bit lives in the body. It's not a mind thing at that point
Right.
anymore. And for me, that what you just said about it being a template,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly how one can meet these parts, is knowing is realizing that this that one is embraces it, is an allowance of this. It doesn't see it as separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one way of saying it is you're okay just as you are without needing to be different in any way whatsoever. And there's a line from I think it's Hakuin Zenji's chant in Praise of Zazen where he says, "This earth where we stand is the pure lotus land, and this very body, the body of Buddha." And that just resonated with me. This earth as it is beautiful and whole and complete. It doesn't have to be any different. We might like it to be different, or and there's some ways I wish it were different, but as it is, it's whole and complete. And this very body, as it is, without changing anything, without improving it, is the body of Buddha. So,
These kinds of thousands of years old or however old, um, sayings, they can go right over your head, or just bypass, like it just sounds nice. And
mhm,
and what many people can hear in that is, oh, they're talking about perfection. It still will kick up the idea of purity and
mm.
perfection. But as you said,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
no, it's
But that
true.
makes, yeah, I agree. I agree with you.
It's
Yeah,
true because it's like a lot of people will hear that, and I might have been one of them long ago and said, yeah, yeah, sure, but not me as I am.
right.
And so that's the
Yeah,
work, is that yes, when you said I'm okay as I am, and it would include in that like I'm okay even when I don't feel okay. This is what it is, regardless of our imagination about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so probably I think that's very hard to accept for almost anybody, but it's just the way it is. It's freely given. It's not conditional. Um, it's just your birthright, I think. And you just have to embrace it and allow it and be okay with it. Again, you don't earn it. You don't deserve it either. It just is there, freely given as a human being. Yeah.
So coming back to the human experience, what can still remain. And I'm not saying because this is not ever fully done. I mean, who knows what done
Right.
looks like? And
Right. I don't know.
liberation is something you keep falling through, and being liberated. And but what's left at this point, I'll just be honest. I'll bring some up right here. Okay. Grief is still here at times.
Hmm.
Sadness can still be here.
Hmm.
Um, but it's like when I say it that way, I literally mean it that way with the purposely with language rather than I don't think anymore like I'm sad. It will literally be like sadness is here. It's more an energy signature. Vibration of sadness is here without the sense of me. And it's kind of like it just visits or it lives still here, or maybe because of the world being what it is. If we're
I
not feeling the world, then there's something wrong.
right. I feel the same way, and I mean, the sadness is real, and grief is real, and maybe I'm better at not elaborating these things when they show up with some kind of story in my head or making them more enduring than they need to be. But they're here. They're part of being a human being. It's like there was a story about a Zen master who was sobbing one day, and his senior student came up to him and said, or one of them said, "What, master, why are you crying?" And he said, "Well, I just lost my chief monk. He just died, and if I don't cry for him, who would I cry for?" So you don't transcend being a human being, and
No,
loss is part of it, and grief and sadness, and I don't know. I think there are things you can do that don't exaggerate or elaborate it needlessly, but
yeah.
just letting it be the way it is.
Well, like animals, they also
Hmm.
experience grief and
Hmm.
loss, when they lose someone or a
Yeah.
beloved to themselves. So you said, so this human dimension, this human experience, I've been exploring it a bit in terms of what can remain. And I was thinking about, well, everything in creation has its nature, right? Like
Hmm.
trees have their nature, and mountains have their nature, and rivers, and dogs, and horses, and cows, and worms. Everything has
Yeah.
its nature and has its dimension of consciousness at how it experiences and senses what it is, what it's
Hmm.
made of, what it is. And humans do too. And so this is something I think that is of value to speak about, like what is still here from those who don't have a self center anymore, that is making it about a me. But what can still visit, what still remains? There's so many beliefs and stories about like I can't, that it should be gone, you know,
Mm.
all gonna go.
That would be, I don't know that that would even be better. I don't see any reason to think it would be better, but
Oh,
I
I
do
like
think,
that. This is a good one. I like that one.
I mean, why would it be better? It'd be different, but would it be better? Huh. I mean,
Yeah.
no. I mean, so much richness comes out of loss, sadness, or anger, irritation. I can certainly still feel irritated at times. It's usually doesn't stick around as long, but because I just don't create stories in my head that prolong it or
Okay,
make
so
it.
so like it's kind of like okay, irritation. So what would that be for you? Like irritation, would that be because there's still some vasana or contraction inside, or do you think that's still part of that's really more part of the human dimension that is still here?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's hard to say. I would think it could be a Vasana for sure. But I think one way to tell would be if you're blaming someone else for your irritation, that would be a Vasana in my mind. It's
Can
not
you can
somebody
you
else's
explain what a
fault that you're
Vasana is?
irritated. What's that?
Can you explain Vasana to our
Vasana
audience?
is it's just a Sanskrit term that means a deeply ingrained habitual pattern that might well be dysfunctional, and it sort of obscures the free flow of consciousness.
Mhm.
That's my definition of it. Samskara is a similar term, but and these can be carried over from past lives. They could be from your family lineage. They can be cultural programming and conditioning. But we all grew up in a milieu that, I mean, we all have an ego, in other words, and you certainly had one and still probably do. But yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
what I'm.
yeah. Tell me about that. I want to hear.
Well, well, don't.
What is remaining about an ego for you?
I said there are times I want my way. I just do. I want what I want.
You want
And
what you
maybe in
want.
some ways I'm less conflicted about that. More okay with it. This is just what I want. So I prefer this. And I think one key is not getting upset with other people for not providing you what you want. But that doesn't mean I don't want it. And maybe I'm even more accepting of being that way than I used to be when I was, you know, younger and
Well, I'm gonna question you a little bit on this,
yeah, yeah, I
Michael.
hadn't thought about this, but I'm
Yeah, yeah,
trying to,
right.
I'll play
Because
with it.
yeah, because
Go for
we
it.
before we went live, we were talking about doer and free will and all that. So
Hmm.
if as you were saying about free will, not we don't have to go into the free will bit, but I'm using it as an example for this ego bit
Hmm.
that if there's really no doer and no free will, how could there be ego?
I would say in that case, ego is just what I would call programming and conditioning.
Yeah,
Um, that's all ego is, really, is maybe a series of beliefs that are the result of programming and conditioning. And I think as long as you have a body, you're going to have that to some extent.
yeah,
At least that's how it looks to me. And
yep,
you can diminish it and you can work on different aspects of it. And that's a lot of what I would call the work both before and after awakening. And I agree with what you said a few minutes ago that the more that you do before awakening, the easier your life is afterwards. Um, so, and just seeing it as a program or, a conditioned belief, not as absolute reality.
yeah,
So if I really want something, which is it's actually not very common for me, but if I did, I would notice it without feeling entitled to whatever I think I should have. But do I want it? I prefer it. Yeah, but
yeah. I think there's not a problem with it. Okay, so this might be one of those spiritual beliefs that
mhm,
one has a story that certain things should go, and if they don't, that means there's still a sense, a self here, a me, which
yeah,
has been seen through. I was thinking about my dog, and then I was thinking about this cat that has attached itself to me outside. They
mm,
both want what they want. I can tell you that. The
right,
the cat gets mad at me when I put it back down. He swipes at me almost. I have to be careful. And the dog, my dog, not the dog, my dog, beloved dog, is jealous of this
hmm,
cat and wants
hmm,
what, and she wants what she wants. You know what I mean?
yeah, I
Yeah.
do, I do.
And there's
Yeah,
no
I mean,
ego
is
there. There's no,
what's wrong with that? I mean, in a way, I'd say really, yeah, that's animal nature, and
so maybe that's part of, does that really mean that there's an ego here when when there's still wanting, language is tricky. I
hmm,
mean, the English language is totally dual and
hmm,
separate, and it entrenches separation. I want what I want,
yeah,
you know, it's just wanting
yeah,
wants what it
right.
wants.
Yeah, there doesn't need to be the I in there, but
Yeah,
there can be wanting, and
for
this, yeah,
sure.
That's it.
I'll cop to that too. No, definitely.
Well, I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think maybe what happens is you just become less either ashamed or guilty or self-critical for that, for being a human being, desire, whatever. Um,
Right. What about things like jealousy
hmm
and you know, like some pain contraction when you know that somebody doesn't really care for you too much.
hmm
It happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those aren't those just like real human experiences? I don't see that they have to be a problem or
Yeah.
just, but I think it is valuable to notice them and be curious about them and accept them, but try not to act them out in a way that creates needless, harm for yourself or others. Um, that's what maybe that we have some say in. But yeah, the feeling of just jealousy or anger or hurt or disappointment. No, I don't see anything wrong with that. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, so this bigger embrace, like with the beautiful part of what I see as the real non-duality, not the one side of sided non-duality.
Right.
Where people think, "Oh, I'm done with non-duality." Well, how can you be done with reality?
I,
You
I,
know,
I yeah, right.
non-duality is the embrace of duality, it's the understanding that it all is one whole.
hmm And you're
So
that, and that's you. You can't step out of that, and there's no reason you would really want to. But yeah,
well, what I'm hearing you say and what we're talking about, though, I think, is this deeper embrace of and welcoming of, this is here. And if there isn't the lens of consciousness that says, and it gets myopic around it, like a little camera lens, and goes, "Ooh, I'm going to focus really small on hard on this jealousy is here, okay," and
hmm
turn it and blow it up and
yeah,
make it seem so big and real and a problem, especially that happens when we see it as a problem rather than, well, it's a label. What if it's just this arising?
mm
What immediately it's seen
hmm
and 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 allowed to be, feel whatever it is, the welcoming of the feelings of it, uncomfortable, a little scared. What does jealousy usually mean? Usually means there's some fear that one is going to be excluded or not part of something,
mm
included. So just kind of feel like and maybe feel it in the body where it's living, and
yeah,
and not make it wrong, and sit with it, be with it, let it alchemize, and it's going to the vibration of it is going to get more diffused
yeah,
through that, and another breath can come, and another moment comes,
yeah,
another moment that doesn't need to recycle that one moment. And
yeah. That's what I mean by creating a story about it and blaming it on your feelings on someone else, and it's that just
or
keeps
being
it going.
ashamed of
Or being
having that
ashamed of
feeling.
feeling this or thinking that's a failure on your part or it's
Yeah.
just these are human experiences that I think I don't know. I'm not saying that Ramana Maharshi or Jesus had these experiences. I don't know, but I know they're still there for me. I just don't run with them as much. I don't.
Hmm.
It's almost
Well,
like they're not a lovey or something that I'm very attached to.
they're not what?
They're not a lovey. They're not
Loving.
something I really am attached to. That
Uh,
it's like I don't maintain them by giving them power and energy.
because you're an acceptance.
Yeah,
You're an
yeah,
acceptance. I think that's the real non-dual awakening state. It's a welcoming,
yeah.
because it knows everything as it is part of itself, see, right?
hmm Yes. Yeah, a friend of mine had a something called a welcoming prayer that she used, which is just well, whatever is, and there's a poem that I want to quote if I can. It's called Prayer by Galway Canal. It's very short, but it goes, whatever is what I want. Only that, but that. And I just love that poem. It's
Oh my goodness. I'm going to
yeah,
have you send that to me. I like that.
yeah, yeah,
Say it
Prayer by
again.
Galway.
Whatever is.
Well, it starts with
Yeah.
whatever is what I want.
Oh.
Only that, but that. Hmm.
And for those lists for all of us listening here, be that, when I think of that, of course I'm thinking of reality.
Hmm.
Only that. And this body is that, and this human dimension of what still is here and is still being transformed and may still be here, like you said so beautifully. I don't know if it would be any better if it wasn't here.
Why
What's
would it be?
why
I mean, really,
why imagine something that uh, like an idea of what realization really is versus the reality of it,
right?
the living of it.
Yeah, yeah. I would say I said the distance between what is and what you think should be is what's called is suffering. So reality just is as it is, and when you embrace it, there's no separation, there's no gap. But if you think reality should be different than it is, in other words, you should get something other than what you're getting, then you create suffering. That's how you do it.
So with I like that. And so that is nice segue into suffering.
Hmm.
My take on suffering is that suffering is and suffering exists. And I'm not talking about the self-created suffering, that needless suffering that is
Hmm.
what you just said. But it's like, but in general, suffering is a part of life.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of us have been led to believe and buy in the story that realization, awakening is the end of suffering. Well, it does end a type of suffering, right?
Yeah, the self-created suffering, like I was talking about, yeah, that can end. But to be alive as a human being, there's going to be loss. There's an English psychoanalyst named Margaret Mahler who was very famous in attachment literature, and she had this line that human life is an endless series of grieving losses. I always like that. It's like, I don't know if that has to be the way it always is, but there's something real in that. It's an endless series of grieving losses. Or you could just say welcoming what is. And yeah,
I think Joanna Macy, who
yeah, yeah, right.
World as Lover, World as Self. She
Hmm.
was talking 20 years ago about grief being one way that you know you're alive.
Right. Hmm.
And that if you're not sensing some sort of grief about the world as it is, and then there's a shut off. There's something that is shut down.
Numbing. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, a fear of feeling,
Hmm.
and that to me with with this living awakening for so many years, I suppose you could say living awakening. Um, Something that hasn't gone away, but it's become it feels different. It's more like it just lives here. This grief for those whom I've loved who are no longer here. This grief for the suffering that exists on this plane. the
hmm
suffering animals, the suffering people,
hmm
the the grief for ignorance that human beings create this pain,
hmm
grieving for, just sort of and it feels healthy. It feels like it's something that connects us.
Yeah, I think it's actually appealing. At least when I see someone actively suffering, I feel drawn to them. Um, it's like there's defenses have been dropped, and I feel protective for their vulnerability, and that's how most people react, I think. So there's nothing wrong with just being a human being, and that's it wouldn't be better otherwise, even if it were possible.
So
Um,
like that Zen story of the teacher, the monk, or the abbot, or
mhm.
whatever, whoever he
Yeah.
was, saying that, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And all the major beings that I think are amazing have all been big criers too,
Hmm.
at times,
hmm
crying when they see suffering,
Yeah.
crying for others, crying
Mhm.
because others aren't crying for themselves, like you said,
Yeah. Yeah.
crying for Mother Earth and her creatures.
Yeah. It's real.
There's nothing to be ashamed. It's actually cleansing to cry. When we do
Yeah.
cry, it's cleansing.
It is. Yeah. I remember reading not too long ago about tears have within them different kinds of debris or byproducts of combustion or something that really you benefit from getting that out of your body. So it's like a detox.
Oh,
Uh,
that makes sense.
yeah. When you analyze tears, I mean, apparently that's what you see. There's stuff in the tear that is good to remove from your body. So it's healing. It can be. And yeah, embracing what is. There are times, when I feel a need to cry, I suppose, without maybe being fully conscious of it. And I'll put on certain kinds of music that I know is going to make me cry. It just because it always does. And then it feels very good. This doesn't happen too much anymore, but there are just times I may not even be consciously aware of why I need to cry or what the sense of loss is or whatever. But so I put on certain kinds of music, and yeah, it's just very healing. Feels very, maybe other people have more access to this. I need music sometimes to loosen it up, but I think that's one of the great things about music. But uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
And
was
I
listening.
used to go, there was a time in my life when I would go to funerals of people I didn't even know
Oh my
and
goodness.
sit in the back and sob a bit, trying not to make a scene. I think this was mainly when I was working in an oncology program and I worked with so many people who died. And I was also grieving my own survivor guilt for not being in the Vietnam War, which I successfully dodged. I was very glad I did, but um, that I would go to parades and I'd see these big black flags, POW, MIA, and these were men about my age and carrying this flag, and I would just feel such sadness, and it got to where nobody would go with me to parades because I would embarrass them.
Oh,
And
what an
so I would wear these
uplifting
big
experience.
sunglasses and try to stand in the back, but I just kept going until eventually it seemed to resolve.
Ah,
And I
yeah,
didn't feel it anymore. So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, just this morning I was listening to some bhajans,
hmm
and I just got overcome with the beauty of the devotion that I started to have tears, but it was
Yeah.
from like the love of this, just the love for
hmm
it
Yeah.
was coming in.
Yeah.
Um,
Devotional practice of any sort has always felt very sweet to me and very, you know. I respect it.
Do you remember that the Medjugorje in Medjugorje, was that in Portugal, I think? Is that in Portugal, Medjugorje? I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
Or maybe,
I've heard of it, but I don't know where it is.
yeah, so I remember I was in my 20s and I was living at the Satchidananda ashram for a little while in Virginia, Yogaville.
Mm-hmm.
And this person came through having holy water and did a presentation on Mother Mary and the Divine Mother.
Mm,
And I had not been raised Christian or anything, but it was such a powerful presentation about this place that had a sighting of a Mary sighting.
hmm
And there was some water that, that you could get. You could fill up a flask with water, and we each got a little bit of the water.
mm,
And that night I couldn't sleep.
mm,
And it was just, I had a visitation and a deep like connection that came up with Mother Mary. And I was crying and crying, beautiful tears, just, I don't know, they were just pouring out of my heart. And I heard her say to me, when human beings cry, it's, it's, I'm crying through them.
mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's
healing
really
tears.
beautiful. Yeah, I live in a community that is quite a significant Hispanic population, and one of the Catholic Church here is Spanish masses, and there was a ceremony where a large group of people from this church marched through Borrego Springs, um, doing what must have been very common in indigenous people in Mexico. It was to celebrate the Virgin of Guadalupe. And it was so sincere and so sweet. It's like and somebody put a video of this up on YouTube and or someplace, and the Borrego Springs Ministers Association or something. And I just would watch this over and over again because I was so touched by it.
Mm.
Such simple devotion and heartfelt presence, really. I admired it and respected it. And actually, I never knew anything about the Virgin of Guadalupe, but I looked it up, and so
Mm. Well,
we as rational Westerners, it's so easy to be skeptical of these kind of things, but well, there's a lot we can learn about them too, and it's valuable.
yeah, I agree. And I think it brings us to our innocence. Part of
Hmm
what we're talking about here, I think, is coming back to sort of a softening inside, uh,
Yes.
an innocence, a vulnerability that doesn't feel the need to defend itself. So it's willing to feel
Yeah.
and not afraid to be disarmed,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I would join in this procession next year if I'm here, because this is it's so sweet and so innocent and so,
Mm.
yeah, profound. It's like I feel like we've lost something when we don't have that sense of innocence and wonder. And
Well, but this awakening of and still seeing what's here, Michael, from I think what we're touching on is what is still here in terms of being innocent,
yeah.
humbled, not needing to be anything special, better than, um, and not be protecting what is still part of the human experience.
hmm
Like, so I guess awakening can lead to one to the shore of first of all, not even thinking about it anymore. You stop thinking about awakening,
hmm
but lead you to the shore of, like you said, what is, and what is what's here right now. And there's no need to defend or push it away.
Right. Welcome it. Allow it to be. Allow yourself to be just this as it is.
Hmm.
It's whole and complete. It doesn't need to be any different.
And
Mhm.
then it's kind of like the wind is blowing and the leaves are moving and one is feeling this and there's this now. For me, it's just a bunch of now moments that are what they are.
Hmm. Yeah, but I'm really experiencing that and embracing it is lovely. I mean, it's really being here, really being present for whatever is, whether that's a breeze or the wind rustling through the trees or, you know, little beings running around in my yard.
Yeah, and the breeze rustling through oneself, what
Hmm. Hmm.
stirring up whatever is here, little sensations and memories and whatever's still here, the breeze of life.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, it's such a gift, and it's freely available to all of us. I mean, nobody is left out of this or denied access or anything like that. It's all freely given.
It is. It's freely given, and then it's like and then it gets to be lived. And that's the part that to me is an ongoing journey, like to the last breath. The living of this
Hmm.
and the welcoming, the realization that it's all that included.
Right. Yeah, nothing gets excluded, nothing gets left out. Everything gets welcomed.
Hmm.
It's all appreciated and valued. And that just feels so freeing because it's the way it is. So if you can just let it be the way it is, that removes a lot of anxiety and I don't know, the need to control. It's like this is okay, but that's not. I mean, just when you notice that in yourself, you notice that's already tension and that's some kind of fear and that's some kind of judgment. And where's all of it? Just let all of it be itself. We don't
Yeah.
need to be afraid of any of it or reject any of it, really.
That takes a lot of that doesn't just happen automatically. Let's be
Mm-mm.
honest with our with whomever's listening.
Right.
Because it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
just happen like that. This is something that and it's still a work in progress, obviously, but it's something that is open to the spaciousness being in this welcoming of it all and
Hmm.
knowing that it is all is a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of what helps that process along, for me, I found different kinds of spiritual literature to be very helpful, whether it's like I was quoting the chant, Hakuin Zenji's chant, or affirming faith in mind is another Zen poem that I just love, or the great way is not difficult for those who do not pick and choose. When preferences are cast aside, the way stands clear and undisguised. But even slight distinctions may make earth and heaven far apart. And it just goes on like that. So just find things that speak to you that either music or that kind of poetry or and then remind yourself of it. I mean, these are powerful. These are powerful. Um, there's another line later on that says, "Just let go now of thinking mind." And would that we can all do that, but it's an aspiration to.
Yeah. And I like what Dogen said, Zen Master Dogen said, enlightenment is an intimacy with the 10,000 things,
Hmm.
which means with everything. And what
Yeah,
we're
which
talking about is you can't be in intimacy with everything if you're in the transcendent.
yes, and that's I think that's what I once wrote a paper about the cave and non-duality, and that's what I you have to come out of there. I mean, it's very nice and it's pleasant to be there for a while, but sooner or later you have to emerge from that into the real world, and that's what I like about that last Oxfording picture. It's like this man is totally embracing life as it is, all of it, and It's, whether it seems good, bad, or indifferent, it is. It's part of being a human being, and none of us are separate from any of this.
No, in fact, I think one is even more here than ever,
Hmm.
more available and sensing and open to the experience of being here than ever.
Yeah.
And because, that saying that from Jesus, being in the world but not of it.
Hmm.
So when you realize you're not of it, which is that one side of duality, the one half of non-duality, which is realizing what we truly are, our
Hmm.
true nature,
Hmm.
empty, then we can really be what we are and not get lost in the form and being the human experience. So being in the world but not of it
Mm.
means you can actually be here because you're not lost in it anymore.
Yeah. 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 You don't transcend duality, I don't think, but you aren't totally controlled by it either. And you don't take it to be quite so serious. That was the way it seems to me.
Well, I don't think you see it anymore as duality.
Yeah, yeah, it's just what is, it's just this.
Yeah,
And that's totally fine. It's totally good.
it's great.
It's precious, actually.
Yeah, this life is precious.
Hmm.
I think that's kind of one of the things we can conclude with here is, just it's really nice being alive. It's a lot, and yeah, the world is going through a lot. It's a very complex time,
Mm,
but it's
for
very
sure.
precious. The intimacy with all things is precious, and that only happens with, as far as we know, with actually being here, being born.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why
Yeah.
people are in such a rush to go to the beyond and not be here. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah. There's no escaping it, and there's no need to escape it. It's
No,
just life happens and you're a part of it, and that's a blessing. Yeah.
yeah. And
We're all
even,
blessed. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, just incredibly blessed. But yeah.
yeah. And I mean, there's real suffering, as we
Yeah,
know.
that doesn't deny that, but
No, no, I don't hear that. But
yeah.
for those of us who are just like able to sit here and listen and watch and get
Hmm.
up and eat what we want pretty much almost,
Yeah.
that is way more than we realize a blessing.
Yeah. It's a gift and it's profound, and there's so much gratitude for all of that.
And we
And
want
many,
everyone to be so blessed. It's
hmm
not like it's because someone is more of value. It's just that's part of the mystery of why life is the way it is, and that's beyond my understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But I think
Beautiful.
a lot of it is created by human beings. A lot of the suffering is created by human beings.
Yes. And we can learn to not do that mostly. It doesn't mean the suffering goes away. It just means we don't add to it or prolong it needlessly by our beliefs and assumptions and convictions. And
Yeah, right. To clean up here is already a s- a- offers a lot. Clean up
Mhm.
oneself, one's
Yeah.
own suffering world.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah. And that allows you to be much more present for other people's suffering, it seems to me.
I agree because then there's less um there's less wanting needing to defend and protect against suffering in general.
Yeah. Right.
Well, this has been fun again, being with
That's
you.
great. It's good to talk to you, and I'm glad that first one was helpful to people, and I hope this one is too. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's just sharing the experience of this world, of this moment. It's great.
Yeah, I just wanted to unpack a little bit. There's always more to say, but I wanted to unpack a bit about some of the human being dimension that
Yeah.
that is precious and does not need to go anywhere. And
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This earth where we stand is the pure lotus land, and this very body, the body of Buddha. But really internalize that and really get that. That's yeah. And I think last time we talked, I quoted parts of the 23rd Psalm, and it's in all of the deep spirit, all the real spiritual traditions. It's just gratitude for what is, all of it. So,
including Mother Earth, I was
yeah,
just thinking about one of my teachers, Nimkroli Baba. He liked to just lay on the ground and like he would just make himself at home on the ground barefoot, and just
yeah,
you know and say, and he there's some quotes of him saying and patting the earth and getting comfortable and saying, "This is my mother. This is,
hmm
you know, just in love with mother, understanding what this place really is.
hmm
It's divine."
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him in that pose. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very, very heartfelt, very real, very, yeah. Uh, So his words were his experience.
Yeah. This is our mother, and we're not separate from her. We're not separate from anything that's taking
Hmm
place. And it has its own reality that's not full of the human being dimension, but it's purely that, and we are purely that with her. We're not separate,
hmm
and I think that's something that does happen along with the deepening of realization is understanding our intrinsic oneness and wholeness with
Yeah, yeah,
this
and wish to
this
protect and not take it, not abuse this earth.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, love your mother.
hmm
Love the father.
And be grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, so grateful. Well, I'm grateful, and I wish you a great rest of your day.
Thank you.